Now, James Harden has had one of the most successful runs with a single franchise, at least individually, over the past decade. He won scoring champ after scoring champ after scoring champ. 7-time All-NBA participant, 6 of them in the first team, MVP in 2018, making 8 straight All-Star games. But that era is done. So where do the Houston Rockets go now? They just lost a top 5 player in the league, one of the best players of the last decade. Where do they go now? Now, I see the Rockets. The best thing about their situation right now is they have a whole lot of flexibility. Right now, they're balling. As I'm recording this video, they just dropped like 40-plus points in the first quarter. They had like one of the best. I think they're now number 1 in defensive rating since trading James Harden and actually getting Victor Oladipo to play. They're looking great right now. And great as in, like, okay, they can be a 7-8 seed. Who knows, maybe they'll be able to take their first round matchup to 6 games. They're looking pretty good. So I can see them taking this rebuild 2 ways. They can either completely tank like the 76ers or the Knicks have done in the past, or they can just compete and wait for a star to join them. For instance, when Philly was rebuilding and tanking and the Knicks were tanking, it's a different situation because the Rockets don't have their picks. But they basically traded all their vets, traded anybody of value that's like not a young player, like Victor Oladipo. He's not old by any means, but he's also not like a 23-year-old. No matter what, if they rebuild, if they tank or if they compete, they need to trade these 2 people ASAP. First one is PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker is so old. You need to get some value from him while you can. So PJ Tucker, if you trade him, you should get at least 2 seconds. You can get at least 2 seconds. Maybe a young player that hasn't worked out really. I would say like a Zaire Smith would be a good thing. I don't know if you can get a good, valuable young player, but maybe you get one on the down low that maybe starts to impress, an undrafted rookie. You can get something. So you need to get it while you can. PJ Tucker is 36. He can contribute, but he's really only wanting to contribute to a contender right now. He doesn't want to stay with the Rockies. Next one is Danuel House. The same situation. He's a pretty damn good player, but like he said in the past, he wants a bigger role, which don't make sense. He's a freaking role player. As a role player, you keep your role and you stay silent. He wants a bigger role. He wants to contribute for a contender. So if you trade him, you get anywhere from 2 seconds to a late first. And so you got to get rid of them no matter what. My ideal trade that I think that they should do is they trade PJ Tucker and Danuel House to the Denver Nuggets, which this is biased because I'm a Nuggets fan. And the Nuggets trade them PJ Dozier in 2 seconds. PJ Dozier is a young player that has some upside as being a good role player. And then 2 seconds is like the value that you would get for a PJ Tucker. Now, if they're taking that tanking route, the best decision, one of the best players that you can trade here that still has pretty good value is Victor Oladipo. And I feel like by the time that they are allowed to trade him, I think it's somewhere in March when they can trade him, because he has this thing where he can't be traded for 60 days after he's traded. He can't be traded again for another 60 days. Well, you're going to trade him to Miami and trade him for Kendrick Nunn, Kelly Olynyk, and a lottery protector first. Maybe you can squeeze another first out of them and also trade Mo Harkless just for some salary filler. And so Houston, they get a good young player with good upside. Somebody who was top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting last year. Yes, he had a terrible bubble, but let's not act like all these young players had a good bubble. Zion came in and had a terrible bubble. So, who knows? The bubble experience was weird, for sure. And they get a good player who can stretch the floor. Somebody like Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins. Kelly Olynyk is a really good player that can stretch the floor. So whoever you're trying to bring in as your new, young, talented player that you use with your pick, well, he should be fine. You'll have Kelly Olynyk, who's a good floor spacer. And then Miami, what do they get out of this? Obviously this makes them even more of a scary team. Like last year, they were in the finals without Victor Oladipo. and with a Kendrick Nunn that was really struggling, and with a Kelly Olynyk that had some good games, but was a really streaky shooter. So it didn't seem like they needed him anyway at all. But for Miami, they become an even more amazing defense. Now you look at their defensive core, it's Oladipo, Bam, Butler, and Avery Bradley. So their defensive core gets amazing, and this lets them compete with teams like the Nets. With the Nets, one of the best ways to beat them, at least how it has been in the regular season, is have an amazing defense like the Cavaliers and have a consistent offense. As long as you have a good defense and you rebound well, you should be able to beat the Brooklyn Nets. And Brooklyn Nets, they're going to make some moves, try and make some different moves, like maybe JaVale McGee, maybe even try to trade for PJ Tucker just so they can try and compete. But nonetheless, what the East is get past the Nets or the Bucks. And the Heat got past the Bucks, and I feel like they can again. It'll make it even better if they have Victor Oladipo. And for the last two players that are somewhat expendable, but I wouldn't really consider trading him. John Wall, first of all, you can't trade him. He's on way too big of a contract. And I would keep DeMarcus Cousins to help develop Christian Wood, or trade him when he's getting better, so you can get his trade value up and trade him for something better. Because I feel like DeMarcus Cousins, man, he's on a very small contract right now. And if they can get him to where he's averaging really good numbers and maybe trade him for a late first or something like that to a contender, then man, the Houston's in a great position. For the second thing, if they just want to compete and be like, let's shoot for that 8 seed, let's try as hard as we can, let's like the Miami Heat teams. I was like, I don't really remember too hard when we made the 8 seed 2017 or something like that. It was like the 6, 7, or 8 seed. We went against Philly in the first round, we got smacked. Or we went against like the Charlotte Hornets in the first round, and we beat them. But them Heat teams, although they were not, their upside was like kind of suspect, they were good for building a winning culture, and that's what you can do in Houston. I'm indifferent right now. I like watching the Rockets, but also it's like if you blow them up, man, damn, they could have a lot of assets going into the future. But yo, that's the video. Thanks for all the support lately. Really appreciate it. Peace out.